Today is Monday, July 18th, 2011, and I'm here with Lawrence McDonough. The first question I have is, when did your family first come to the island, and how were they related to you?
My mother was born on the island, and I think my dad was too. And that would have been 1880 something, but I couldn't be sure the exact date of that.
And what were your parents' names?
Sylvester McDonough was my dad, and Mary Conlon was my mother. She married best to me, so. And they had 6 kids. And I was the second youngest.
Your second youngest? How many siblings did you have?
Me or them, my brothers and sisters. There's 6 of us.
6 of us.
You remember your grandparents a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they were quite elderly people. They lived with my mother and dad on a farm. That's a picture of us up there.
Just up there? They were farmers?
Yeah, they were farmers.
Okay.
No Irishman was a farmer that I ever knew, but they said they were farmers. You know what I mean? They're just commoners that came from Ireland. My grandparents came from Ireland.
What were their names, your grandparents?
Sylvester McDonough was my grandfather.
And Ellen Corey.
Ellen Corey was my grandmother.
And they met in Toronto.
Oh, okay. Toronto. Did you know them very well?
No, I was pretty small, but I knew when they died.
Could you describe what your grandmother was like, what she would do?
She was a medium-sized lady, and of course we were kids, and she thought we were great. After raising her own. And I had older brothers and sisters, one younger brother.
What did your father do here?
He went on the farm.
He was the farmer too? Okay.
He also did a lot of logging around here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we lumbered a lot. And woods, it was all, nobody had been there before them, you know. The Mormons were here, but they didn't do any farmers because they cut a little bit of wood. They just lived in town, mostly.
They lived in town, yeah. How about, did your mother help out on the farm too, or was she mostly in charge of raising you?
She cooked all the time. There's quite a few of us and a lot of neighbors. She was busy in the cooking. She raised the garden though. Had chickens.
Dad, maybe you could tell them a little bit about the farm, like how many sheep you had and the cattle and...
Oh yeah, we had, at one time, we had 100 sheep.
Wow.
That we used to take the wool off them every spring and butcher, sold the lambs to people who wanted to buy meat. And we ate the lamb some ourselves. And we had cattle, probably 35 head of cattle. And we got our milk and butter was made right there on the farm.
Wow.
Did your mother and grandmother spin the wool from the sheep? Or
Did you what, ma'am?
Did they spin the wool from the sheep?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we had a spinning wheel about that high.
Wow.
And made our own. My grandmother mostly. My mother quit making the wool after they were living there. They sent her across the lake to Traverse City, Charlevoix or something, and get wool. And then she'd knit every night after from September on, she'd make a pair of mitts after we'd eat dinner. Knit them by hand. Too long knit needles was that long.
She knitted most of your clothes, or
Yeah, no, we bought most of our clothes were bought.
from?
Other than mitts or caps.
She would
About
knit
the
those.
only thing.
It's nice.
And there was 5 or 6 of us around all the time, so we do it, lose a pair or wear out a pair. She was always knitting in the wintertime.
So, when you were growing up, did you grow up out on the farm, the same farm?
Right?
Yeah. What was your childhood like with your 5 other siblings?
Some of them were older, and then they went to high school. We had a grade school up by this, where we lived up there. And then downtown was the high school.
Okay.
And it was taught by Dominican sisters. And if you want to go to high school, I see it 8th grade, you had to go to town. And most of the family, I wasn't lucky enough. My dad fell when I was probably 2 or 3 weeks in school, in high school. And I had to go home and help on the farm, so I never got back.
Oh, okay. Did your other siblings also work at the farm, or were they able to
Oh yeah,
go?
some of them did, and some of them worked at the place, but most of them, when I grew up, be 16 or 17, they were on the farm. And then they'd go on to other jobs. But some of them went to high school, some of them didn't.
Because we did boys that we ended up stopping at the.
So, could you describe your school experience in grade school?
Well, we had just a regular teacher, that had gone to school. She was usually from down there, and she would teach us kids. We had, I think, about 10, 12 kids in school, all we had.
Wow.
And we did up to 8th grade, and then you went down to high school.
Did you have to do any work at school to keep up the school at all, or?
Well, we done the janitor work and cleaned the school. There was nobody who could do that.
Right.
We'd all get our turn in doing it. But that was only to the 8th grade, and then, as I say, we went to town.
For high school.
Cool.
Before that, did you ever really see a lot of the people who lived in town, or
Oh,
was
yeah.
you most? Oh, okay.
We came to church. We were Catholics, and we'd come down every Sunday or whenever there was church. And the Dominican sisters taught the high school in town, so you had religion along with your other studies. And we'd come down and stay we had some aunts that lived down here, and we'd come down and stay with them while we went to high school. And I never got only to 3 or 4 months of high school. My dad fell and got hurt, and I had to go home and do the farm. I was probably 14, maybe.
So, what were the winters like here back then?
Well, the winter lasted year-round here back in the day. We had no snow plows, had no cars. We would travel by horse. And, well, they weren't too bad, I guess you'd call them. But it usually gets snow in October. And of course, didn't try to remove it or anything. Sometimes it stayed till last of May. The winters were long, but we didn't know any better. We never were used to it. But we had, there was people scattered all over the island, and they'd come down and visit, and we'd go and visit them, and there's all those boys and girls around, you know, that we didn't dance or anything, and but they had music. Most everybody here could play a violin at that time.
Oh, really? Could you play an instrument?
No, I buy them all for you. Yeah.
Did you ever go ice skating or anything?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was a big deal. You'd have ice from October to May, so you'd be sick ice skating by the time. Yeah.
Would you just walk to school then in the winter, just
Mhm.
trudge through the snow?
Carry our lunch to school. And whoever was the smallest to see that they got there.
So, how about the summers? What would you spend in your childhood? What would you do in the summertime?
Well, we lived about, this house was about from here to the road from the lake. And we'd swim every day.
Did you
The
ever
boys would go first and then the girls would go.
separately?
Yeah. Yeah. Usually the girls would have a suit. Those boys wouldn't. So we'd start and dress when we left the house. Go over swimming, dress on the way back. But there was nobody lived there for miles around us, you know, there wasn't anybody on the beach or
Mhm.
so you didn't care when you went swimming.
You made it sound leisurely. There must have been a lot of farm work.
Yeah, oh yeah, you
You
worked
still-
every day. When you were small, you had to ride the horses to cultivate corn and potatoes and stuff. When you got bigger, the smaller fellows, they'd ride the horse. Another, you'd get big enough to get a hold of the cultivator.
Could you describe the relationship between the farmers and the fishermen on the island?
Well, we used to call them fish chokers. That's the name they had. But most of them were relatives, you know. They're relatives of farmers. Not all of them, but majority of them. And they lived downtown in the fishermen, the harbor here. Or we were out in the country, but there are a lot of relationships. You know, there are a lot of them and were related, came from Ireland. When I was a kid, there was probably 5 or 6 farmers came right from Ireland. And they were not farmers. And they lived, but they had a hard time.
Another question I had was sort of in light of the booming fishing industry. You said everyone, I mean, there were a lot of relations that you had,
Oh, yeah.
farmers and fishermen. So, was there ever any class division or anything between the occupations?
Not really. There was a time that the fishermen had a better way of making a living than the farmers did there. Because fishing was really good. And they got a good price for it right there. They took it and packed it nice right in the dock down there. And then they take it to the mainland and ship it to Chicago or Detroit. And their income was more steady than the farmers. Farmers had one time of the year in the fall, they'd make pretty good money when they sold their cattle and sheep and the wool. They'd have good money, but the fishermen had from I'd say the 1st of April till 1st of December anyway. They had an income. Run there every day. And some of them were successful, some didn't make it. And they worked for other people. They never could afford to go into fishing like they should have. They'd always kind of a drag along, you know, with a lot of income and not have good fishing boats and fishing nets.
His mother and Mabel Cull were sisters, and the Cull family, they were big fishermen here on the island.
What, after you left school to go work for your father, were you working on the farm? How long did you do that for after?
I worked all over town. I worked in lumber camps, and I run them myself. And then my brother and I went in the milk business, pasteurized milk, and then we had to milk the cows and pasteurize the milk delivered every day. We had the car then, and we done that for, God, 18 years, I guess. And he moved to Grand Rapids. And I went captain of the boat for 22 years here.
Oh, which boat was that?
The Beaver Island.
Oh, okay.
And the first Emerald Isle.
And then first Emerald Island. And we made a trip every day from there. And during the summertime, I had to live in Charlotte. And then I managed a boat company. I don't know how long I was there.
Another 20 years.
It's quite a while anyway. I
Sure.
managed a boat company lived in the Charlotte. We bought a house, my wife and Pam was the one who had 4 or 5 other kids besides Pam. And they were away to school most of that time. And then they gave me a notice that you had to come back here. So here I am. They bought the house and fitted it out. I came back and my wife died. How long ago was that, Pam?
A couple of years ago.
2 years ago. We enjoyed it here, come back. We knew everybody pretty much. And I had a lot of relatives, people that owned the store, another in town. They were relatives of mine. And we knew everybody in the island anyway then. Now there's quite a few I don't know anymore.
When you were farming, what else would you provide to the town? Would you just deliver the milk, or?
We grow vegetables along with that, and like potatoes and meat. Somebody wanted to buy in the fall there, they want to buy a quarter of beef. And we butcher beef and sell the beef down, and usually keep some for ourselves.
You did a lot of grains too and things because
Oh,
of
yeah.
all the animals, oats and corn.
So when you were growing up, were there a lot of opportunities to socialize with the other young?
No, we were 6 miles out in the country, and nothing on a horse to ride or something like that. So we did the neighbors. We'd have a few neighbors that were close, within a mile or two, and you'd visit them, but very few. Places in the wintertime, Summertime, we had horses we used to ride from the country downtown, and if we were going to stay overnight, All we had to do, let the horses go, they'd be home in 20 minutes. Get back to the seat and was standing there till somebody let them in.
Oh. Were there ever any house parties that you went to, or
Oh yeah,
dances?
they used to be a lot years ago, after cars came, everybody had house parties then. And we'd go to them all over the island. Everybody knew everybody else. You didn't wait for an invitation. If you heard there's a party, you'd go.
Could you describe what one of those was like at all?
Oh, we danced, and there was always somebody could play either violin or harmonica or something like music, you know. And they'd play, and we'd dance, and we'd all disappear and go home. And there's every house, I think, that I ever remember had a hardwood floor, which was good to dance on. And somebody could play music, no matter what it was. And we didn't know good music anyway, so it didn't make too much difference. But there's always some oldies that would play either harmonica or violin, or if you had a piano. And at a long time, there's only 2 pianos on the island. And then they became quite plentiful. They took a small boat from here before Pam was born, and went down to Chicago, and named the mine at a furniture place there. And they must take back 6 or 7 pianos, and some were player pianos you pump, you know. And those guys, we had a hell of a time then. We were really rich. And the elderly, they'd get out with us kids and dance too, you know, square dance and stuff like that.
Who were some of the sort of characters when you were growing up on the island?
Who wasn't? Well, let's see.
Why don't you tell him the story about the Downies, the Downey house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he told me I was out there cleaning it one day with the Little Traverse Conservancy, and he told me a story about, they might enjoy that.
Which one?
Well, about, was it Peter and going back? He was living here and then he went back to Ireland to get a wife.
Oh, yes. That one. Well, he came here from Ireland, and he was a little Irish too. And they lived. Have you been around the island at all?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, we call the trail road this one that goes down from right up here. The 4 corners are, you go down that way. They lived way down there in the woods, and he was a terrible liar. So he went back, he was going with this woman in Ireland a little bit. He knew her about good as it could be. You don't have to write all this. And he went back to Ireland, and he told her that he had a big farm on Beaver Island, and that he owned a fleet of fishing boats in New York. So when they came back on the boat, he told her that when they passed through the boats, when they're coming in New York, he said, that boat's mine, that boat's mine. He didn't have a dime, and he brought her to an old shack up here, and she was an awful nice woman, but she had no money either. And they lived there, and he lied to her about the boats, and she never did find the farm, I don't think, because they had, the farm was as big as a kitchen here, with a shack on it, and she raised 6 children. She raised, and somehow they survived, I don't know how. But the islanders at that time were here and they had a little more, so they kept them pretty much, you know, and food enough so they wouldn't starve. he was a good worker, but he was not a liar. He'd lie about anything. But they raised, I think they 1 daughter and 4 boys, I guess they had in the family. But the majority of the population at that time were Catholics. That's the Mormons left. Most of them are Catholics. And they were kind of brought here by priests that would come here, and then they'd go back to Ireland and say it was just like Ireland over. And I don't know if it was or not. I never got to Ireland.
Do you know if, did your family ever pass down any Irish traditions?
Oh, everything is from there in Irish. But of course, kids don't pay much attention to that, you know.
Maybe, what was it, 6 months ago, out of the clear blue, you could say the Our Father in Gaelic.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember Grandma speaking a few
Yeah, yeah.
words.
I kids had to learn it.
You learned Gaelic?
Yeah, and Gaelic.
And why don't you tell her about, you know, how your mother always believed in the little people and maybe the hill behind Salties?
Oh, yeah, they believe, you know, the Irish live in the fairy. You probably don't know what the fairies are, do you?
No, we know a little bit about them, but if you could tell us, that'd be great.
There was a place up here, we had a Catholic priest here one time, and there was a place up here that he said the fairies danced at. I don't know, I never saw it, but it's right up the road a little ways here. And they were very superstitious Irish. And they'd, somebody tell them something, they'd believe it, you know. And the fairies that were dancing up here, and they'd swear that it did happen. I don't think it ever did. I know it did. But they had some odd ideas of how you lived, you know. And they tell me, I never been to Ireland, but they tell me the Irish over there somewhat that way too. And they were superstitious, I know that, different things. They do very odd things, Irish. Do you know, maybe you are.
I am a little bit Irish, so.
How about you?
Quite a bit, actually.
Are you? Oh, yeah.
What sorts of odd things did they, what sorts of odd habits did they have?
God. What would they do? Well, like the fairies was one thing. And you could tell them pretty much anything. And they might repeat it at 25 and swear it was the truth. And they were very gullible, swallowing stuff that they tell. But you probably heard of something better than I do, Pam.
Probably. No, I'm trying to remember a few of them. I think one of the things that you could say is that they were deeply religious.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were. They wouldn't miss church or anything else.
And the rosary. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the rosary.
Would you say the Catholic Church was the center of
Yeah.
the community?
It was. Yeah. I'll tell you one story about the Catholic Church. Was up here on top of the hill. And there was a fellow lived up in the country there. He lived with mother and dad. He was only probably 20, 25 years old. And the Irish were great for partying, you know, drinking. And so he got a bottle, and it was, church was going to be at 8 o'clock. So he went to church, put the bottle in the back of his buggy, and tied his horse up and went into church. And he fell asleep. The mass was going on, and the priest got up and he said, "In Judgment Day, you'll be there and I'll be there." And this fellow just woke up and he said, "So will I." The whole congregation. So there were fellows characters like that. They'd get partying and go to church, you know. And they always, one thing they did for a small community, they always had a bootlegger that made booze for where you could buy it, you know. And they'd sell it to anybody. So there was lots of drinking around back in days.
Who were some of the bootleggers? Did you know any? Did you know where?
I knew them all.
You even made a couple of
Yeah,
batches.
I knew how to make whiskey. My dad used to make it, but he wasn't a drinking guy. He'd have it for anybody who would come in the house to drink. And I made it then, after I know the dairy business, I thought I'd try it. I tried it at a house. I built a house when we got married, and it's down in the woods. I don't know how to describe that. But anyway, we lived in it for, I don't know, we were there. You weren't born there, were you? No. And then we had 6 children of our own. My wife and I died. And there's did you come to a boat?
Hmm?
I got 2 sons on there. One fellow's a cap, one fellow's engineer. And so there's a lot of activity around here to make a living.
When did you meet your wife? Have you always known her?
Oh, I knew her. She was, I know, much younger than I am, quite a bit. And her dad owned a grocery store. My mother used to sell butter and chickens and stuff to him when I was too small to drive a horse. I'd ride in the buggy with her down, she'd deliver the butter. So I knew this girl, she was quite a bit younger than I am. 3, 4 years, maybe more, right?
I think she was 18 when you married and you were 25.
Yeah, I guess that is. And so I knew her since she was that high. And most of the island boys married island girls, you know. Of course, there weren't very plentiful in these places.
Could you talk a little bit about what your mother was like? What her personality was like at all?
Well, she must have been pretty good. She had quite a few kids. She killed some, I'm sure. Yeah, she was Irish too. And her dad owned a store up by the colleges on the east side down. Were you ever up there? They had a grocery store there. That before town was settled. And she was a quiet lady, didn't, you know, she didn't talk a lot, but she done a lot of hard work. She was called milk cows like we would when I was a kid, or us kids were too small. And, of course, as far as she went as 8th grade, those Irish didn't have any education. You know, they came here and they didn't think of school was anything, so they went, carved out some land and grew vegetables, and that's what they survived on. Because they didn't have any money. And then the Beaver Island Lumber Company came here, and that was a boost to the island because they could work. And pretty everybody worked besides the ones they brought here. The islanders worked and sold their wood. So that was quite a boost to them.
Grandma was a very independent lady, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Deeply religious, as I remember.
Oh, yeah.
She died when, I guess I was 12. She was 88 at that time. And she'd seen her amount of tragedy, too, didn't
Yes.
she, Ann?
Yes, she did. It wasn't an easy place to make a living on the island there, you know. It took both parties to do it.
The eldest one of his family fell out of Genevieve. She fell out of a high chair, and they always said she died of meningitis, but it was probably, you know, an internal bleed. And then she, I mean, you all remember when the Merrill blew up, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
was Dad's older brother.
Yeah. They had a boat, a big boat tanker on the shore north of the island, and they gave it up for anybody to go and salvage whatever they wanted, and they had full of fuel. And my brother was working on a boat that run between here and Charlevoix, and it blew up. And he was killed, never found. There's 5 of them. And, well, there's kind of bad luck with, you know, no doctor for years there now. If you got a broken bone, you live with it, or you survive. There's some of the women were quite good at repairing somebody that broke an arm or something like that, you know. And then we had a Protar. You probably heard of him. He lived out in the country here. And he used to doctor people. He'd go there. He wasn't a doctor really. He knew a little bit of it. He'd wrap you up on somewhere until you got home anyway. And I remember one time, my 2 brothers, they're older than me, were going hunting. And they went to the bridge between the barn and the house where we lived. And they were going across there, and one fellow said, I think I'll load the gun. So he put a yellow gun, they pulled the barrel up and it fired. And they hit him, and the other brother in the light, he was the youngest. And they took him out to this old Protar, and he looked at him, and he was at that time in 8th grade going to school. I think I was maybe in the 2nd grade. And so they took him out there, and he said, well, he's all right. That's all right. It didn't hurt a bone, but it done something in the flesh, the fat part of his leg there. And the babies that keep coming out. So he'd go to school, and then one of us kids would have to go home and tell my dad to get the horse and buggy and go and get him from school and take him back. And he had that for, I'd say, 15 years, and babies kept coming out of his life. And they crippled, it must be they got on a muscle or bone or something, and he couldn't walk. So he'd have to go and get my dad to come and get him. And then he was killed in that boat blew up out. And they never found his body. They found the rest of him, but not him. And my brother and I found the captain over on the west side. We walked the island several times. Just think we'd find our brother, you know, but never did. And we found the captain. He was all dressed with a hat on and everything when I found him on the west side there. And he had dresses from December, and this was in June we found him. The Coast Guard were here at that time. They went up and picked the body up and sent it back to Kenosha. I think he was from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Was that when you were working with the logging, or as the
No, this
captain
before.
Oh, this is before.
I was at home.
Oh, okay.
Just on the farm on Sandbay,
On the
and
farm.
his mother used to send them out to look, and they would get on horseback and scour the shores, you know. It's not an easy thing not to have a body enclosure. So,
It's been very hard. Well, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience with the logging and the lumber company.
Well, the first part of it, a fellow came from Grand Rapids, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, and they used to make croquet sets. You know, croquet sets. He made them up, cut the timber up here, and I worked for him. I used to take the log to the mill, and he had a sawmill, and he done the sawing of the logs, and they cut them about that long, and they were turned into rounds about that much. And then they took them to Grand Rapids, and they cut them in croquet, that's, you know, the handles.
Oh, yeah.
And then they had a mallet about that long that you had to hit the ball with. And they made the balls down Grand Rapids too, so it was a multiple work, you know. We cut the logs here, cut them in the sawmill and send them down to be finished. They made them smooth and painted them like you see them with stripes on them.
Where would they sell the croquet sets? Would they
Grand
sell them
Rapids.
Just in Grand Rapids?
The fellow paid for us work on the woods and lumbering here. And I'd have 4 or 5 men in the wintertime and team of horses. And we'd take them out. There was a sawmill up in the middle of the island at one time. And it had a outfit on it, turned the square timber that was cut in the mill into round timber. And then when they got to Grand Rapids, they cut them no length about that much. And we hauled them down, then put them on a boat. I took them to Charleroi and trucked them to Grand Rapids.
you worked in other camps too. Do you remember which other camps you worked?
Oh, I did camp my own up at the little Lake Geneva. And I was about 16, I guess, then. And we had 4 men or 5 that would work in there. They'd cut the tree down, and I had team horses. We'd pull them out to the road and then down to the lake, and then they'd float them from the lake around the island and down to the sawmill down here. Cut it into stuff for building houses and stuff. That was softwood. But the other was made out of hardwood. And that could only be gotten on the west side of the island. And hemlock, you can't even see it out here in trees they used.
And then you had also mentioned that you did hemlock with your father.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was a lumberman too. Along with farming in the wintertime, that's what you do. You go and cut logs, sell them to the mills. They'd cut them into lumber in the spring. And it was the only kind of money you could make in the wintertime. Or you cut wood and you'd sell to the fishermen. Worth $5 a cord, I think. You wouldn't get rich if you worked all day.
Who were the other men who you would work with? Were they other islanders, or were they people who the lumber company would bring over?
No, when the lumber company was here, they had a railroad running up through the island, and they brought their own men pretty much in. You could sell them your timber, you know, they'd buy it, and they'd cut it up. But you didn't have much to do with the mill. But anybody that wanted a job on the island could get a job in the sawmill. And they had a railroad track, went from downtown up to Southern Island.
Who were the crew members fellers that you know that you would have hired, Dad?
You mean
The
in
men in the camps.
the camp? Well, Hughie Cunningham, Jimmy Floyd, and there's a fellow I never did know his name. He never told his name. I think he was afraid of the law or something. He didn't want anybody to know about him. I never did find his name. I had to pay him cash. The other crew could take a check, but he wouldn't take any check. So, but I had an uncle work for me for 5 years, I guess, in the woods. And then we'd have a man cook, no women around the mill camp.
Tell them that one story about at Carpenter's Mill when you went up there one time to check on the crew. And the dinner, the pot and the chicken, you remember that one?
No, I don't. You tell.
No,
Oh.
you'll have to tell it. But you went up there to check on them, and I'm pretty sure it was near Carpenter's Mill, and they had been partying, and they made a dinner, and there was, when you walked up there, they had the chicken in the pot, and do you remember the potatoes you were talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but it don't come to me right now.
The feathers on the chicken?
Oh yes, that was Van Farmer, Patsy. Who else was there? But they were going to get dinner for themselves. I was downtown, went back to the mill, the camp, and they had everything cooked, but they had gone to bootleggers for. They started cooking, and they were both, three of them. There were three of them. I don't remember who the other was, but gassed up pretty well by that time. And they had the chicken were in the pot, and the feet were sticking up, and the feathers were floating in it, and the legs were half peeled. So, oh, they were having the greatest time ever. Yeah.
How long did the train run on Beaver Island? You said there was a rail?
I think it was about 12 miles.
Okay.
It's up in the middle of the island where the timber grew. And they went up one way and back down. They didn't turn around or anything. And they'd pull maybe 3 or 4 cars, loads of log, down to the mill where the marina is down here now. And dump them off, go back, get some more. They employed up to 40 men with that mill here, so it was great for the island already, because there wasn't anything else we could. Well, there's fishing, but not. Excuse me.
You mentioned that it was only men who worked at the logging, at the mill and
You're right.
everything. What were the roles of women on the island while you were growing up?
Well, everybody had a garden, like in the spring of the year, you know. And the ones that lived on the farm, the women, then all the taking care of the cattle, you know, to feed them while the men were out in the wood. So they were employed with no money.
When did you start working on the Emerald Isle and as a captain?
I was, what, 40? I probably when I went. But I did fish with the fishermen around there in fish boats. Not on my own, but I fished with them. And then I worked on the inland seals. They hauled ore from Dakota to Indiana Harbor. I worked there for a couple of years during the summer, which was good paid. Then they lost money. And I think one time there was 29 or 30 sailors worked every year on the boats. I didn't work only a few years. Some of them stayed around all the time.
Do you have any stories of when you would fish with the other fishermen?
No, I was just a worker then. I don't think I probably have them. I'll think later, but that comes to me right now. I don't remember.
Who did you work for? Do you remember?
Yeah, I worked for Mike Call was the name of the fellow on the boat, the nice fish boat. And I worked for people by the name of Gallagher. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with fishing or not, but when you fish either with ponnets, they're along the shore, you know, they drive stakes down, put nets on, and you pull the net up and dip the fish out of it. Then the other ones that work on a fish boat that's built for it to be in bad weather and stuff, you pull the nets aboard the boat and duck the fish out and set them back again. Just to return them. And sometimes you get, 2,000 pounds of fish. Sometimes 1,500, you know, they vary sometimes a year. But there used to be about 10 boats a year at one time. And some are what they call ponded fishing, where you drive the stakes in close to the shore, and there's they call a lead, is a net that they run into about 6 feet of water and out to what they call a pot, and the fish comes up to this, and there's no place to go. They go this way, and they get in the pot, and then you go and scoop them on. And it's nothing to catch 2,000 pounds of fish in the net. Of course, they don't do it anymore. There's no fishing like that. And then they take them in, dress them and sell them, ship them on the mailboat Charlevoix, and they distribute them different places. But this was one of the greatest places in the United States for fish at one time. They finally fished them out.
Actually, what is your favorite childhood memory?
My what?
Your favorite memory from your childhood?
That'd be a hard one.
Do you have any fond memories, not just from your childhood, just from living on the island?
Well,
Favorite places to go?
about the only thing I left here and I never figured and come back. The kids said you're going back, so I said okay, and they went and got the house here built and sold the house in Harloway. How long were we over there, Pam?
About 20 years.
20 years. And then in the back corridor, back in the aisle. But we lived, I don't know how to describe it. This house was on, were you out the country at all? How far out you go?
I've been all the way around the
Oh,
island.
did you? Oh, God. Well, the little house, that house is burned down. There's another house there my sister-in-law lives in. And that's right in Sand Bay. There are a lot of houses along there. But this was back between the river and the lake. It was built in there.
You know, there are probably two little stories that you might want to tell about farming. One is tell them about your trip over to High Island. You were about 15.
Oh.
And you went with, I can't remember, Brown?
Huh?
Who did you go over there to High Island with?
What was his name?
Wasn't it Brown?
Yeah, I believe his name was Brown. The Israelites came from Ben Harbor. You know about the Israelites. And they went to High Island and started farming over there. But they didn't last too long. And they left there, and then there was a couple of fellows tried to farm over there, but it's all sand. You couldn't go disturbing them even. And went over. My dad had a hay baler, and this fellow wanted him to go to Island to bale hay. He bought some Israelites. And the Israelites lived down in
Benton Harbor?
Ben Harbor, yeah. And I don't know if there's any more Israelites or not, but there was 100 of them over there at one time. And they lived there, and they built a bakery for themselves. They're very thrifty people. And they farmed, and they they had a boat. They'd bring the produce up here, bring it to Charleway, and they really had a big, at Benton Harbor, they had a big farm. And they'd even take it down there and sell. And they were here for, God, I don't know, 20 years ago. And my dad had a hay baler, and this fellow, after the Israelites left, he went down there and cut the hay. Well, he couldn't get it up here, whatever he cut it down there for, unless in bales. And my dad had a hay baler, and it used to put it in bales, so big, and compress it, and tie it with wire. And another guy and I was about 14 again, and he wanted to bale the hay so he could move it off there. And my dad wouldn't let the hay baler go unless I or my brother went with it. So we went down, I was down there for a week with another young guy from the island here. We took an armful of hay and threw it down in the barn, that's where we slept. But they had big ovens and cooking utensils of all kinds. They really lived good. So we used their stuff. They weren't supposed to, but we used their stuff. But we're down there after a week's time. Boy, I never so hungry in my life. I wasn't that good of a cook myself.
And the Indians brought you back, didn't they?
Yeah. The Indians took us out the west side of the island and said, you'll have to jump in the lake now. We get in about 5 feet of water. That's Joe. And get into 5 feet of water and hello, Joe. How are you?
He's just getting interviewed.
Come on in, you can help me.
No, thanks. That thing at the museum is Thursday at 8 o'clock in the evening. That's Montai logging over at Garden Island.
Yeah.
I gotta be gone, but I don't know if Dad would want to see that.
Oh, maybe I'll take him then. Okay,
Yeah, I gotta stay in Charlevoix that night.
Okay.
I can't.
all right, thanks for letting me
We'll
know.
see you later.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. That's fine, fun.
The other thing is about the thrasher. That was a big thing for the island when they got their first thrashing machine.
Oh, yeah. We used to have a fellow that he was a German that came right from Germany. And he was a excellent mechanic and anything, blacksmith, anything. And so we had no thrasher on the island. And they had a meeting one time here, and we all gathered up, and we had a pen. I think all we could put in $25, something like that, a piece, and then we bought this treasure and got it back to the island there. And we thought that was a really big investment, you know.
You had even the doctor here.
Yeah,
at the time.
Dr. Palmer, he was a doctor here. He put in $25. Everybody thought he was crazy, but anyway, he helped us a lot. Because the money was hard to get then, you know. I think they had a comp at $300, something like that, to buy it. And then we got it over here, and whoever bought it went to sea. They didn't provide power for it. And all they had here was horses and to power it. And it didn't have what they call a power part of the tire. So then we had to get a gasoline engine run.
Wow.
Now we got divided. Every farmer got his tire thing done. And the wind was put on a big meal. One that tried to outdo the other, boy. By the time you're done thrashing, you were too full to do anything.
Did you work a lot with the Indians here on the island, or what?
I didn't work much with them. There might been one in a camp, lumber camp I was in or something like that, but I knew most all of them. You know, they're all happy-go-lucky guys, holler at you and wave at you. They're really nice people.
You did talk about one fellow who was an Indian up on the west side camp, and remember the rabbits that you talked about him snaring?
Oh yeah, Eddie Birch, he was an Indian. And that was her grandfather had a camp up at French Bay, and by the southwest side there. So they couldn't get a crew one time. I was about 15, I guess. And I was downtown with my dad. He asked me if I wanted to go to camp, and he ended up to be my father-in-law. So I went up to the camp there, and there was 6, if I remember right, men in the camp. And this Indian is called Eddie Birch. And he was, like the Indians are, they're famous for trapping, you know. And rabbits were so thick on the island, any place, if you were here, now they'd be 6 or 8 in the yard out here. So he set some snares that's made out of copper wire. You make a loop in the copper wire, and in the wintertime, these rabbits run on the same trail. So they run in this loop and hang themselves. And he knew just how to do that. So he put out so many snares, we call them, and caught so many rabbits that he piled them up as cordwood. He did them, well, across this room anyway, from down the ground to 6 feet high. And in the weekend when things were kind of tough for people to get food and money and stuff, he'd take them down, get them if anybody wanted rabbits. God, everybody was so full of rabbits that time spring. And they wouldn't think it was rabbit. Yeah, they were so thick. You could look out at the window there and there'd be 10 rabbits out there. Then they died off after that. Some hunted and some died. But he was a famous trapper. He just make a loop in the wintertime, rabbits, you might not be familiar with this, they follow the track. Maybe 5 or 10 rabbits will go down this track. They don't run off here. When the snow comes, they stay in the track. And they find tufties along the way. And so he was famous for trapping. And We ate a lot of that at camp too. Yeah, that was the main food, were meat. I don't imagine you girls ever had driver teeth.
I have.
Have you?
Not me. One last question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Is there anything about the island that has changed or disappeared since you were growing up that you wish was still around? Or anything about the way of life or particular places on the island?
Oh yeah. You could come downtown from the country if you lived in the country, and come downtown, and no matter what house you pass, there'd be somebody say, "Come on in, have a cup of coffee or have something to eat." So that's all changed, because we're not, they're strangers. They don't know us, we don't know them. So that's one big change. And of course, it was all horse and buggy in my day, and now it's all automobile. But that, I suppose that's the most means of traffic. And the roads, we had roads you couldn't drive a car on. You had to have a horse or walk. And I don't know if they're, you knew everybody by their first name. And if a stranger came in the boat, somebody would come and tell you who they were, what their name was.
Did you get to know a lot of the people who would visit in the summertime when you were the captain of the...
Oh yeah, I knew everybody that came to Island. Who left the island? Yeah.
Well, and there weren't restaurants. I remember you just haul them home and Mom would feed
Oh,
some
sure.
people. They'd get here and there was no place for them to eat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what, like the Bovies, that they started CMU when they first came here. They got off the boat and there was no place to eat, so Dad just brought them and the Allens
Yeah.
up and, just put a couple more plates around the table. But we had cows and lots of meat.
Oh yeah. Nobody ever went hungry on the island, I don't think. Because if anybody knew that somebody didn't have anything to eat, they'd bring them food. Everybody would bring food.
It's really nice.
And that was the other thing that you were saying. You had a grandmother that was married to an uncle.
Yeah.
That's the way that, and you used
My,
to have kids come in and your mother would take them in too if something happened to a...
oh, sure. Sure, we had kids that went to school. There was a little schoolhouse up where you turned to Sand Bay. It's about 5 miles out here. That's where I first went to school. And there was other people lived in the way out in the woods, and I have a little farmer come, and the kids that go to school, they come that way and say, "Oh, winter, go to school from there."
Was that the Sunnyside School?
No,
Or was it
the
Roosevelt?
one that's up further than
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt?
Greentown.
Or Greentown.
What we used to call it, Greentown. Yeah, we had as many as 3 or 4 stayed at our place all winter. Go to school with us guys.
Was that common for
Oh, yeah.
the rural schools to have kids from even further out state?
Oh, sure.
houses?
And same with when I was talking about your grandmother and your uncle. They had a way of sort of taking care of people. There weren't any social services, it sounds like, in those days. And so people would get together and live together, like your grandmother and your uncle.
Oh, yeah,
She didn't have a husband.
right.
Was he a bachelor?
Yeah, he was a bachelor. Oh, we had more bachelors than I own. Other than the women, for any woman with any sense would run and get off the island. And a lot of the girls went to nursing school. Went to Grand Rapids, Chicago. And most of the places, the cities, like Detroit or Chicago and the likes, you'd have some relatives there. And if you wanted, they'd get you a job or you could go and live with them. You had a place to go and you left there. Which a lot of them did stay with their relatives.
I just thought of something else. What were you still have the homecoming dinners? Do you remember when that first got started? August dinner?
Oh, that would be before my time, I guess. That's possible.
Before.
That they started, but you
Yeah.
remember
Right,
them
the
in
Oh, I
remember
remember. Yeah, I remember that people would come here a couple of days before and they'd stay with relatives. And I don't know how many people would come. I never did count them, but there were a lot of them anyway. And everybody relative would come. And they'd just move in with their relatives, and say they're ready to go home.
So
Yeah.
you used to also talk about the end of the boating season when all the men would get off the freighters
Oh, yeah.
and come back, and they were flush with money.
Yeah, we'd have 30 or 40 men from the island there that worked on the freighters all summer, and their pockets were bulging with money. They couldn't spend it. And they come home and they had a raffle. Here, they'd raffle stuff off, and then fellas would throw money away like it was going out of style. They did take a handful out and throw it down, get a ticket. They never even looked to see if they won some. Yeah, we had a lot of sailors here. One time there were 26 fellows from this little island was sailing. It was a good way to make money. And a lot of them moved to Chicago, Detroit, worked in car factories. They had no education, but they could do that kind of manual labor.
Was that, did a lot of men become sailors sort of after the fishing industry declined a lot?
Oh, yeah. And during it, too. There wasn't doing he liked to get on a fishing boat. The smell alone, So they would head off to sail. And we had a lot of captains at sailboats on the lake.
Do you have any more questions? Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
I hope you got the information you
Yeah,
wanted.
we got so much excellent stuff. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to show you